And I know that we are continuing to refine our processes and trying to get back to a point to where we can predict what's coming and bring that joy and that excitement back. So by just making a small shift with the CNA, this is one way that we can start to bring that joy along. The SIPSA or the LCAP, when based on a powerful comprehensive needs assessment, is the key to and the guide for all of us on our learning journey. And so we want to bring a focus back to that comprehensive needs assessment and the power behind it. The day we quit learning about our environment, our work conditions, our teaching and learning, that's the day we need to retire, isn't it? So we want to build on what's already in place. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bath as we're thinking about the needs assessment, but we want to have a way to build this so that it can be stronger than ever before. So what is a comprehensive needs assessment? As we're thinking about these small tweaks and little adjustments that we can do, we need to go back and really take a look at the basics. What are we talking about with a comprehensive needs assessment? Well, if you want plans that are going to transform your school, you have to think about this comprehensive needs assessment as both a document and a process. Because it's continuous, this document is never going to be completed. So when you refer to it, it makes it more sense to even call it a snapshot, because that's what it is. It reflects the current moment in time, but we know that this is going to change as new data becomes available. And we know that there are specific things that need to be analyzed in the comprehensive needs assessment. I know that the California dashboard is coming back after 2 years. It is coming back online as live. And so we're all going to want to go in there and look at those specific pieces of data that are analyzed and put out there for our stakeholders to see. So it's about understanding where we are right now and our strengths, our weaknesses, and really getting down into the root causes, looking at the impact of what we're doing against those root causes. So a CNA process is much like this. It's something that I know you've seen before in this cycle of analyzing, interpreting our data, and then documenting priorities that we want to do this year to eliminate gaps. We want to connect to implementation and make sure that our implementation reflects those gaps and those things that we want to eliminate. And then it's all about collecting data along the way. Are we on track? Are we making progress? It's about monitoring along the way. It's all about that learning journey. And it's like this. Where are we today as we're taking these steps towards where we want to be? It's looking at our assets and our strengths and building on those and making sure that we've got those problems right in front of us so that we know what we're working on to eliminate. And it's the difference between where we are and where we want to be, that vision for excellence. It's that place that we want for every one of our students. And then it is connecting the pieces in the middle along the way, connecting and looking at the gaps between where we are and where we want to be. I know all of you have seen this cycle many times and probably get to the point to where when you see this, you just kind of tune out anymore because everybody understands what the dimming cycle is like. It's very familiar to all of us. But a small tweak that we can do with this dimming cycle that can help us have a greater impact is this. We need to add a section at the top that specifically addresses this continuous improvement cycle and the look at our identifying our strengths and our needs and that current status. So I would suggest that we add this piece about the analysis before we get into the deeper parts of planning our actions and implementing and monitoring and then adjusting, and really think through the analysis part of the Deming cycle. That tweak can make all the difference in the world. Many times as we are working with our districts, we see these SIPSAs that are developed. And when you start asking questions about the details behind how they developed their strategies and how they knew or how they know what sections to work on, they can't address that because the depth is not there in the comprehensive needs assessment. So I think we need to put that right out in front so that people understand exactly what we're facing. So why is the CNA so important, and what makes one comprehensive? Well, the CNA is absolutely everything. If we step back for just a moment and we get above the clouds and we start thinking bigger, thinking beyond that hectic schedule that is there for the rest of the day, all the things that are piled up on your desk and the phone calls that you need to return, and really think about why we're here. What is it that we want for our schools and for our students? That is our vision. Vision is not anything new, and I know all of you have a vision for your schools, but how are we using that vision? And in all of the uncertainty that's happened over the last couple of years, this really is our anchor that we need to go back to. It is the piece that grounds us. It tells us what our why is about. And sometimes we need to get back on track by looking at that vision to know where we're going. We can't measure the learning gaps until that vision is solidly in place. So one of the things that I would challenge you to think about today is, what is your school's vision? Or what is your district's vision? And when was the last time that was revisited? I know that many districts have talked about the why behind the vision, but sometimes that is an important piece that we need to go back and reflect on. And as we're looking through this, also thinking about what that mission is. Why do we behave the way we do every single day? The vision is all about the why, but the mission is about the what and the how. And that's where we've seen shifts in education, shifts in the way that we're providing instruction to students, and it's very exciting. So maybe now is the time to really go back to that mission and look to see what is it that you've used in the past as your mission? Is it still relevant? Does it need some tweaking? Could just a little shift in that mission make a difference in the way people behave every day and why they get up to go to work? What is that all about? Here's an example of a mission statement and a vision statement. Not that they're perfect, but these are deeply intertwined. And when you look through the mission and the vision, you get a sense of what this district is all about. And we want this to be something that is relevant and something that is used. It's something that people can hang on to no matter what pops up in the school next. So the vision is that piece about the future. And it really exemplifies the shared beliefs and the values of the founders, the staff, the personnel. The mission is explanatory, and it declares the actions that we're taking to reach those long-term goals. And we need both of those in school, and we need those to be very clear. I love this statement. This is Larry Lizotte, and he says that a needs assessment is the difference between where you are right now and what your vision statement says that you want to be. So it's about moving, it's about going forward, it's about getting bigger than where we are today. It's about that critical link between your vision and where you want to be and what you're seeing in your data, in your CNA snapshot today. It's all about the gaps that are in between the two. Clarity is what we're after. Recently, a principal told me that since COVID, she's just felt scattered. She said that as soon as she collected and organized things, something else came along and scattered everything again. In the CNA, that we can find clarity. Sometimes awareness is enough to motivate change. And so merely writing down the strengths and the problems can spark ideas for possible solutions. And it gathers things together. It's that process for change by identifying the things that we want to work on. It helps us see change clearly, and it also helps us filter and know what pieces we don't have to pick up and the things that are most important. And so if we're feeling scattered and we've lost sight of the vision, going back to writing those things down can help clarify and make things more understandable. That's another reason why we want to keep that vision right in front of us, because it's all about clarity. It's about passion and it's about hope. These things can anchor our thinking and provide stability, and all of that will help us move forward. I know that you've seen a graphic much like this. And, you know, people that don't really understand what planning is about and improvement is all about, you know, they think, okay, start with a vision, do a needs assessment, write some goals and some strategies and put them in place, and you're successful. Well, those of you that are educators and have been in education for a while, you know that it's not quite that simple, right? There are many factors that keep that success from happening. And so many times we have to do this. We go through that process, but once we get to the implementation, we review and we adjust, and we have to start again with that needs assessment with new data and new thinking. And we go through the process again of refining and adjusting, because our children are different all the time. And so we can't use the same things that we've used in the past. And that's what makes us different than working in a factory of some kind. It's that we're in the people business. And so that needs assessment is very critical. We always have to spend time going through where we currently are and where the changes can be. Another little thought for some shifting that we can do with our plans to make a difference is to really go back and look to see what ESSA requires. You know, ESSA is very big and full of programs with some very clear intentions. And ESSA speaks in several ways. In fact, it tells us that we have to have robust needs assessments in many of the programs. Some of those programs even tell us what stakeholders need to be present, and some of the specific data that we need to study, the analysis we need to do, the groups of children that we need to be looking at, and so forth. But it also is silent in some areas. You know, there's no master list of needs assessment requirements. So that requires somebody to be very familiar with what ESSA does require. And one of the nicest things is that there's no specific processes for the needs assessment. Although we need comprehensive needs assessments, there's no prescriptive way to do that. But there are some things that we can do and provide for our schools to help them in this process to simplify. Because if you just ask people to go out and do a needs assessment, that's pretty overwhelming. So there's some things that we can do to help schools get focused and make sure that they are promoting high quality, well-rounded education for every student, and ensuring that those critical protections of equity that's so important in the opportunities for students are present. And it gives us leeways to things, certain things that would be important from school to school, because every school, as you know, is a little bit different. So one thing we can do is to take a quick look down through the programs and what the requirements are in the CNA. And this is just a quick look at some of those programs that are federal. And it's not important necessarily to read all the things that are on this list, but if you look over on the right, there in that last column where it says required, this is talking about a comprehensive needs assessment. And if you run down through the list, you see Title I-A, yes, that's required. Title I-A about the school programs, yes, that's required. And you can go through the list. The interesting thing to see here is there's not a program there that says no. There's not. All of these are requiring needs assessments in one way or another. Even the Title I-A about homeless children and youth, where it says optional, and that's optional because there are other pieces. McKinney-Vento has a needs assessment that is very closely tied with this. So there's not a program that you're going to find that says, no, you don't have to do a needs assessment. Here are some more of those programs that are there. So the writers of ESSA were very adamant about the importance of a comprehensive needs assessment. And I think that that is in place in so many different areas of our lives. None of us would want to go to a doctor and have a doctor prescribe something for us without an assessment. We want to know what is wrong before we are given any sort of treatment to alleviate the issues. And it's the same with our kids in school. We need to know exactly where their learning is so that we can design that personalized instruction and provide all of the things that they truly need. This is just another look at ESSA. And if you go through ESSA from cover to cover and read about all of the programs that are there, you're going to find words in there that are needs of student, needs assessment, greatest needs, educational needs, unique needs, the needs of youth, the needs of children, changing needs. It's all through ESSA. And in fact, if you go through there and read it, you're going to find those words in there 323 times. So that tells us the importance of conducting that needs assessment and making sure that we are looking at data and we are implementing what the results, the things that we find through that data. And it's the right thing to do. So no matter how many times it's actually there, the little secret here is it is the right thing to do for our kids. This is a very basic look at a planning cycle, and your particular district may not use these same terms, but in any district, if you go and get down to the basic pieces of planning, you're going to find that these pieces are there. And sometimes what we find in schools is it is assumed that these pieces are in place, but when you go analyze them carefully, either we've had transition and we have new people in place, or people may have come from different districts and joined together and they kind of combine some of their thinking. But we find sometimes that these pieces are not as tightly aligned as they should be. And this is a very easy tweak to make to your planning process that can give you some real results. So if we look on the left-hand side with the comprehensive needs assessment, you see that there is a blue box there about the annual review. That's where we start planning all the time. We want to do a review of where we are. So it is not only looking at what our progress has been from last year and how we scored, but it's also looking at that piece of, okay, this is where we were, now we're here at this point, and looking how those pieces fit together. As we look at our current data, then we can establish what our priority problems are right here. And that's a piece of developing that comprehensive needs assessment. Sometimes they're called needs. I prefer to call them problem statements, because the way a problem statement is written helps open the conversation. If you have it written as a need, sometimes it closes down conversation. And one of the most powerful things about a comprehensive needs assessment are the conversations that occur. The thinking that occurs between people matters a lot. And from those problem statements, when we're ready to write our plan, when we get over to the SIPSA, those priority problem statements directly tie to a goal. And I've got this labeled as a SMARTer goal. We'll look at this in just a minute to see what I mean about a SMARTer goal. But you should see a direct tie between these two. And if you do a great job with your CNA, then it makes it almost a no-brainer what your SMARTer goals should be to address those problems. The other thing that occurs is if we do a good job in our comprehensive needs assessment and we really drill down and determine what our root causes are, and I said causes with an S because more often than not, a problem has more than one root. And after we determine what those roots are, then we're going to determine which one is the most important to address right now. That would be why this picture has root cause, because we're going to address one root cause with a set or a series of strategies and practices. We may have additional root causes that we're going to come back and address too, but we want to look at these root causes separately in order to get the best impact in eliminating that. One mistake that I see happens a lot is people will determine there's more than one root cause, and then they just try to lump everything together. But by doing that, you never have an idea of what's working and what's not. Everything becomes a little bit gray. From the strategies and practices, again, those point right back to your SMARTer goal. So once you have those pieces in place, you see that this is all very tightly aligned. And by achieving your goals, you should get to the point to where you're reaching those bigger goals. And this up at the top, if this is a SIPSA that we're writing, those goals up at the top in the purple are aligned with my LCAP. Those should be your LCAP goals, which are set into place by the district, which puts you on track to reach that vision, that big picture. And again, it all starts over here on the left with the annual review, and this cycle repeats itself. So this is one small tweak. Nothing's new here, but it is something that you can do with your schools to go back and just ensure that these pieces are in place and that the people in the school understand the tight alignment and connection between all of these pieces. This can make your implementation process work extremely well. Another area where you can work to make some small tweaks has to do with the strategies that you put into place. Many times in plans, we see strategies that have been in there for years. So you look at your SIPSA this year and you look at your SIPSA last year, and it's the same strategy. And if you go back to the year before, you're still going to see the same strategy. So we just repeat things over and over and over. We want to take a different look at these strategies. And it may be something that we do want in place multiple years, because sometimes our strategies are big and they're hard to implement, and we need them over and over again. But we want to look at each one of these strategies individually, and we want to run it through the BEST acronym. We want to know that that strategy is bold and it's beyond our current status, our current status. So if we had a tutorials program last year and we want to have a tutorials program as a strategy again this year, great, let's do that. But let's look at that tutorial program from last year and determine how can we make it better than it was the previous year. So we want to go beyond the current status, because it doesn't matter how amazing that tutorial program is. There's always something that we can do a little bit better and make this a little bit stronger every year. Now, another thing that ESSA requires is this E in BEST, and that's evidence-based effectiveness. So there are strategies that we still have in place that really have no evidence for effectiveness. And there are wonderful resources. There are websites that have been designed that actually show you what that evidence is. So when we have options of different things to implement, we need to be checking that to make sure that there is an evidence base behind this, not just research, but deeper, the evidence behind this that shows that it is effective with students like ours. We also want specificity in our strategies: who and what and when and where and why. We want those things because we want to make sure that people have thought these strategies all the way through. Who's going to lead it? What kind of team needs to be in place? What kind of actions need to happen? And what about the resources? Do we have the resources available and the funding available? When is this going to happen? Do we have too many things stacked up all at the same time trying to happen? And that causes none of them to be implemented well. Where and why? The most important thing is why. Why do we want this particular strategy? What impact is it going to make on our students? And then the last one seems like something that would be very obvious, but it isn't always. We want strategies to be tied back to a need that we find in the comprehensive needs assessment. That's the main reason why ESSA requires that we look at a comprehensive needs assessment, to make sure that we are spending our money the most efficient way possible. And that has to be tied with a need. So using this BEST format is a way to tweak these strategies so that you can make little changes that can end up having big impacts along the way. Another strategy that you can use is in designing your goals. And many people have used SMART goals for years and years. That piece has not changed, with being specific and measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Sometimes these terms are a little bit different, but the SMART goals has made an impact on the way that we write our goals. But I would suggest that we go a step further than that. Not only do we need to write these goals, but we need to be smarter about them. We need to make sure that there is a very definite piece that is evaluating the goals and looking at the impact. Because in our schools today, in our busy world, it's not enough to just write a SMART goal. It's not. We have to be our own monitors to evaluate and looking at the impact that's there. Not just did we do it by looking at a sign-in sheet, but what does this professional development do for instruction in the classroom, and how does that impact our students? We have to take that piece all the way through. The second part of SMARTer is this R, and making sure that what we're doing has a very designated way of being reviewed throughout the year. We don't just set those goals into place at the beginning of the year, and then at the end of the year, we come back and look at them. We need to be looking along the way and reviewing and making sure that we're on track, on target, so that we can make those adjustments when we see that there are little tweaks and things that need to be done. By doing that, we can end up with a greater impact at the very end of the school year. We ask teachers to do this in the classroom, to stop and check for understanding. Doesn't it make sense that we would be doing this in our schools as well? The other piece behind this is, if we evaluate and review our own work, then we are much more likely to meet those accountability standards and all of the expectations that our stakeholders and parents and others want from our schools. We need to be our own evaluators to see the progress along the way. Who knows better than the people that are working with students every single day about the effectiveness of these goals and the strategies and the things that are put into place? So we want smarter goals in our schools. I love this picture, and it illustrates a little bit more about what we need to do if we want better results. So when we're looking at this picture and looking at these three women running the race, my question to you would be, which one of these women want to win? And it's really pretty obvious, isn't it? When you look at their faces there, all three of those women want to win. So they all have a goal of winning that race. So at the end of this race, though, there's just going to be one winner. Only one of them will achieve their goal. The other two won't, because they didn't win the race. So if we think about this in the world of planning, if we want better results with planning and transforming our schools so that they are stronger than they've ever been before, we need to look at our system of planning, not a deadline for a SIPSA or a deadline for an LCAP, but this entire system throughout the year. You know, the data on the website, on the dashboard, comes out, you know, about mid-year. So half a year has already gone by when that data becomes available for everyone to see. But districts and schools have had that data for a long time. And that data needs to be analyzed when it comes about. And it's that continuous process where when that comes out on the dashboard, we've already taken a look at that months ago, and we have things in place that we are operating and doing to eliminate those gaps. So it's from that comprehensive needs assessment all the way through the strategies, how they're being implemented, and then that final evaluation. The tiniest details matter. So as all three of these women were preparing to win this race, you know that they were working out and they were eating well, and they all had plans in place to win this race. But at the end of the race, there's just one winner. So in our schools, we don't want to have this same format in place. We don't want our goal just to be having that data that shows up on the state dashboard to be better than it was last year, because that shows the end of the race. If these these women, when they run at the end of the race, it's over. If they don't have something else in place, then they've stopped their process. So what we would want for these runners would be that they have a mindset that it's about being a runner instead of just winning this race. Because when they have a mindset of being a runner, as soon as this race is over, they continue on. They're preparing for the next and the next and the next. And it's the same with our schools and about the SIPSA. It's not about completing that document. It's about that shift in thinking to become a data-informed school that thrives on clear strategies, careful implementation, and monitoring your own progress so that instruction becomes customized and just right for the students that are there. It's a system of planning. It's all about doing what we have in place now with our strategies and getting better and always looking for the next step. So that's what it's all about when you are in a data-informed school. I love this statement, and this one too also comes from James Clear in his book Atomic Habits. he says that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So in thinking about that picture before, all three of those women had the goal of winning the race. If only one person wins that race, it can't be the goal that makes the difference, because there was a successful person in that race, and there were unsuccessful people in that race, and they all had the goal to win. So it's not about just setting goals. It's about the system that's behind that. And conducting a comprehensive needs assessment and then building that plan that you are implementing and monitoring and adjusting, that's all a process. It becomes a system together. You can build and implement a SIPSA without doing a robust comprehensive needs assessment. But if you do, you're going to be vulnerable to the cracks in your system, just like we see on this slide. You're going to be vulnerable to hidden issues that you don't know are there if you have not looked deeply at the problems and worked to get to those root causes. And if you don't conduct that robust CNA, then you're going to operate in reactive mode instead of proactive. And you're going to find that your school is just surviving. It's just trying to keep up with the whirlwind that comes in that day, instead of operating in a proactive mode. And you survive instead of thrive. Small shifts in planning can really make a difference in direction. It can make that direction matter over time. And without putting much more weight on our already burdened educators, we can make small shifts that can really produce something greater at the end of the year. So instead of introducing something new to your administrators and your school leaders, make a deal with them to just simply have a time to review the best practices for conducting a CNA. With so many new people and maybe even some uncertified people in our schools because of the shortage of personnel, you may find that what you think is in place really isn't. And you may find that there are some small shifts now that will produce large payoffs in the spring. Every single system and process in education has been challenged because of COVID. I'm not telling you anything there. But my question is, how is your school responding to that? What pieces do you have in place to make this school year the very best yet? I want to stop and see if there are any questions that I can address. I'm not seeing any come in to the Q&A. I'm happy to hang around for just a little bit if there are some questions. Again, I am Leslie Lauder from 806 Technologies. Our mission is to create a world of innovative schools through responsive software and processes. Frankie, are you online?
Leslie, are you able to see and hear?
Yes, I can hear you, Frankie.
Leslie, are you able to see and hear me?
Yes, I hear you, Frankie.
Success. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry for, thank you guys so much for being here. Leslie, I don't know if you finished up because my internet was unstable. So I didn't catch the last maybe 10 or 15 seconds of what you said.
All right. Well, there are a couple of questions that have come in. One question says, I'm new to Plan for Learning. Does the software have the capability to translate plans into other languages? We actually have a translation service where we do translate those into other languages. We use live translators because sometimes the technology in translations isn't always accurate. So we do translate those plans into other languages. And then there's another question here about time being a factor. How long is the process, at least to get started? So the process of using Plan for Learning is an easy one because we'll help you by importing your SIPSs into our software. And the time factor it's a big one, of course, with everything that's going on. So we work with each district to determine what's best for you. If sometimes we divide this up into little pieces and chunks so that it makes it manageable for the administrators and their schedules. If you were to just put it all together and talk about the CNA process all at once, defining it is about 3 hours. It depends on how readily their data is and whether we want to actually work through the data together at that time. It could add another hour or so on top of that, but every district is in a different place. Sometimes you already have people who have analyzed some of the data. So we want to make sure that we meet right where they are. And so if they've already done some analysis, we're going to take that piece and build upon where they are instead of starting from the very beginning. So I would love to have further conversation with any of you to better explain that and hear exactly where your district is and what your school is doing. Are there other questions? Those were great ones. Well, you see my contact information here on the screen, and I'm happy to have any of those discussions with you at any time. Whether you're a customer or not, call me and let's have a chat about your planning, and I am happy to have discussions with you about what's working and what's not. So one thing Frankie wanted to talk to you at the very end was about a takeaway. What is your biggest takeaway from this piece? Share it with us now, or share it with us on Twitter. We would love to continue this conversation with you. Frankie, is there anything you want to add at the very end?
No, thank you. And again, I apologize for all the technical difficulties. So while you're thinking about that, a couple of things I really wanted to share, and I was supposed to address these things at the very, very beginning, but one thing I do want to mention is, thank you to AXA for our partnership with you. We're very honored to partner with you, and for those AXA members that are going to be attending some of the events, we are going to be sponsoring some of those. So I hope to really see you guys. So the second thing I wanted to mention a little bit about my history. I also was an educator in San Bernardino Unified School District. My kids go to public schools in California. And so for those of you that might have known me in the past, in addition to being a teacher, I was with several other different companies. But one of the reasons why I chose 806 Technologies is really the story between Ross and Leslie. And, internally in our company, we have 3 core values: be adaptable, be curious, and embrace the family culture. So I loved the story between Ross and Leslie, just as it was as simple as the son wanting to do something for his mother. And the second thing is be adaptable. So I was supposed to kick off the meeting. So Leslie, thank you so much for being adaptable. You have no idea how much I appreciate that. So, so again, thank you to everybody, all of the attendees. And one more thing I wanted to mention is a lot of the practices that Leslie had mentioned, particularly about the SMART goals, we took those practices and a lot of those practices and put them into Plan for Learning. So a few of the attendees that I saw that were on, Marina Madrid from Rialto, I'm going to be coming out. I have a meeting with Kevin Hodgson, the new state and federal programs person in Rialto. So we're going to have, hopefully we get to have this type of discussion there, as well as Susan Brown in Ukaipa. Thank you for being here today. And I'll also come out to see you. And I still have to set up a meeting with your assistant to show them Plan for Learning, which you're going to be implementing in January. And also Thelma Stevenson from Grossmont. I know that you were in Sweetwater in the past. Sweetwater is one of our current partners. So Thelma, I will be coming out to see you as well. You live just down the street from me. So I will be knocking at your door pretty soon, okay? So that's about it from me. Any other questions that you guys might?
The other thing I would add, Frankie, is if any of you would like a copy of this presentation, don't hesitate to either email Frankie or email me, and we'll send it out to you. Thank you, Susan. We will send it to you. If you'll send us your email address. All right, thanks so much. Oh, I see quite a few of you are wanting the presentation. Absolutely, we will send that to you right away. Well, thanks so much for joining us. I'll stay on the line. If there are no further questions,